This is a story about Bulgy the bus. He came to work on the island of Sodor during the busy season. He thought he was better than all the engines, so he tried to take their passengers away. Bulgy. It was the sightseeing season on the island of Sodor. The Fat Controller's engines were working hard. Their station was crowded with people. Duck, Donald and Douglas were taking passengers from the station to other parts of the island. Some passengers had been brought to Sodor by a big red bus called Bulgy. Bulgy looked at the crowded platform and frowned. I wouldn't have brought more passengers if I'd have known how many were here already, he said. But they are all really enjoying themselves, said Duck. Puh, replied Bulgy crossly. Duck thought Bulgy was very moody. Bulgy was rude to all the engines. Every time he saw them, he shouted, "Down with the railways!" He said railways should be closed, so coaches, buses and cars could do everything instead. The engines thought Bulgy was rather silly, but when another bus arrived to take Bulgy's passengers home, the engines were worried. This meant Bulgy was going to stay on the island. Would he really get the railway closed down? What would the engines do then? Bulgy told the passengers that he could get them to the big station faster than the engines could. That's rubbish, said Duck. It's much further by road. Yes, said Oliver, but Bulgy says he knows a shortcut. That evening Duck was about to start his final journey of the day, but he only had a few passengers aboard. He waited for a few minutes, hoping more would turn up, but none did. Just then, Duck heard a loud toot toot. Bulgy was leaving the station. He had a sign on his side saying railway bus. Most of Duck's passengers had gone with Bulgy, because he had told them he was working for the railway. Stop! Stop! Called the railway staff as Bulgy pulled away, but it was too late. Yaboo snubs! Bulgy said as he roared away with the passengers. Duck and his carriages, Alice and Mirabell, set off on their journey with the few passengers they had. Bulgy is a nasty old thief, said Alice to Mirabell. He's taken our people. Duck knew they had to stop Bulgy taking their passengers. If it carried on like this, the railway could be shut down. He wondered what they should do. But Bulgy was about to be stopped. His shortcut led down a narrow road with a low bridge. As he rushed under the bridge, there was a sudden screeching noise and he ground to a halt. He tried to move forwards and he tried to move backwards, but it was no good. He was totally stuck. Cars and coaches beeped angrily at Bulgy because he was blocking the road. A tour bus like you should never have gone down this road, they said. Bulgy's passengers were furious. We should have gone with Duck, they said. He would never let us down like this. We're going to miss our train at the big station, and it's all your fault, they shouted at Bulgy. Bulgy didn't say a word. As Duck reached the bridge, a man appeared by the track waving a red warning flag. Danger! He cried. A bus is stuck under the bridge. Duck moved slowly forward. He saw Bulgy under the bridge. So that is Bulgy's so-called shortcut, he laughed. Bulgy held his breath as Duck slowly moved over the bridge. The bus tricked us, said Bulgy's passengers. He said he was working for the railway, but he lied. Can we go with you instead? Duck agreed and took all the passengers to the big station in time for their train. The passengers promised they would always travel by train from then on. Bulgy was left under the bridge. He had to wait all night before he was rescued. He didn't learn his lesson, though. He still thought he could take over the railway. But by then everyone knew that it was faster to go by train, so they all travelled with the engines instead. Bulgy decided to retire. He asked a farmer if he could live in his field and look after his hens. The farmer agreed. From that day on, Bulgy was much happier. The hens enjoyed hearing about his grand adventures on the bus route, and how terrible engines were. They didn't know any better, and Bulgy felt proud because the hens produced more eggs than ever before.